What happens when a lawman becomes a power-obsessed tyrant, willing to break every rule he swore to uphold? J. Edgar Hoover, the first man to lead the FBI, carved out a terrifying legacy by blending public dedication with shadowy operations. In 1935, he established the FBI National Academy, crafting the image of a modern and scientific law enforcement agency. But behind that curtain was a man obsessed with collecting secret dossiers on politicians, celebrities, and even his friends. Hoover held in his grasp an extremely sensitive file on President Franklin D. Roosevelt. This wasn't just documentation. It was a weapon, a power he wielded to control the highest office in the land. He ensured not only that no one dared challenge his authority, but also leveraged this information to manipulate the political playing field. Hoover was a master of surveillance and information manipulation. From the early days of his career, he knew how to use information as a tool to bolster his position. He didn't merely collect information, he weaponized it against anyone who dared challenge him. A letter from 1942, coded FBI Secret 42, reveals how he leveraged information to counter criticism and maintained absolute control for decades. J. Edgar Hoover wasn't just a powerful leader, he was a man possessed by power and control. His clandestine activities not only blurred the lines between law enforcement and abuse, but also reshaped how we think about power and ethics in government. In 1919, America was gripped by the Red Scare, a pervasive fear of communism that made infringements on civil liberties easily ignorable. J. Edgar Hoover, a young operative in the Department of Justice, seized this opportunity with cold precision. He exploited the Palmer raids, leading to thousands of arrests and deportations without clear warrants. This was his first act in building an empire of surveillance. By 1924, when appointed head of the Bureau of Investigation, he expanded his secret files. Hoover didn't merely collect information, he weaponized it against those he perceived as threats. In 1946, a memorandum coded FBI HR 98765 set a new directive: increase wiretaps on suspected communists. Hoover wasn't just fighting communism, he pursued it with a near-pathological fervor. The phone taps were not merely about gathering information, they were a means to control and manipulate. Another strategic move was the creation of the 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list in 1950. It wasn't just a law enforcement tool, it was a propaganda weapon that cemented the image of the FBI as an unbreakable force. But behind those mugshots on front pages, Hoover was orchestrating a covert web of intelligence. Hoover never let his adversaries rest easy. He built an expansive surveillance network to maintain his grip on power against all comers. He knew how to wield information like a sharp sword, ready to cut down anyone daring enough to challenge him. In doing so, Hoover didn't just reshape the FBI, he redefined the concept of power in American politics. In the turbulent 1960s, J. Edgar Hoover faced an inescapable challenge: the civil rights movement. But instead of supporting this necessary change, Hoover saw a nemesis in Martin Luther King Jr., whom he deemed a threat to the order he had meticulously crafted. For Hoover, control was paramount. Anyone pushing for change had to be obliterated. 1964 marked one of Hoover's most nefarious moves. He approved an anonymous missive, notoriously known as the Suicide Letter, designed to coerce King into abandoning his cause or ending his own life. Declassified document. FBI MLK 1964-01 reveals the brutal extent of this operation. The letter was laced with threats and secret recordings from King's hotel rooms, captured through wiretaps stealthily installed by the FBI. Hoover didn't merely want to humiliate King, he wanted to destroy him. He deployed the entirety of the FBI's surveillance apparatus to scrutinize King's every move, hoping to unearth any information that could tarnish him. While the civil rights movement surged forward with vigor, Hoover was silently pulling strings behind the scenes, in hopes of maintaining his grip on power. The letter wasn't an isolated event, but the culmination of years of monitoring and eavesdropping. It reflected Hoover's ruthless leadership, committed to using whatever means necessary to safeguard his authority. He didn't just refuse to acknowledge the legitimacy of the civil rights movement, he viewed it as an uprising that had to be quashed at any cost. But when this document was declassified in 2014, it exposed to the public just how far Hoover was willing to go to secure his position. He wasn't just a powerful leader, he was a symbol of extreme control and paranoia, ready to do anything to maintain his absolute power. In the twilight of his reign, J. Edgar Hoover tenaciously clung to the pinnacle of power, despite an intensifying storm of criticism. Even as age crept in, he held firm to his FBI throne until his death in 1972. But how did Hoover manage to maintain his grip for so long, even as shadows of suspicion began to loom large? The answer lay in the secret dossiers he guarded like treasure. A 1971 confidential memo document of FBI Cover 71 reveals a chilling directive from Hoover: destroy potentially incriminating evidence before a comprehensive congressional review could take place. Hoover wasn't just a master of information. He knew how to wield it as a shield against all adversaries. Hoover turned the dossiers he amassed into an unparalleled political weapon. His critics knew that the slightest misstep could result in their lives being laid bare by the damning information contained within these files. He wasn't simply a powerful leader. He was the embodiment of fear and control, and he knew how to use it to safeguard his position. As the political climate shifted, the Watergate scandal erupted in the early 1970s, beginning to unravel the clandestine operations of the FBI. This was evidence that Hoover's once unassailable power had started to wane. But while the public slowly became aware of the horrifying truths about FBI operations, Hoover remained steadfast in maintaining his stronghold. This unraveling not only exposed the FBI, but also shone a light on the tactics Hoover employed to sustain power for nearly half a century. He didn't just use surveillance to investigate crime, he turned it into a tool for self-preservation against any threat. His stubbornness and absolute control over information kept him standing until the very end. Hoover knew that his downfall could come at any moment, but he didn't let it deter him. He continued to lead with an iron fist until his last breath. As the world around him changed day by day, Hoover maintained one principle: control was everything. J. Edgar Hoover's legacy is a complex narrative of heroism and tyranny. He redefined the FBI, transforming it into a formidable agency, yet his tactics laid the groundwork for modern-day surveillance overreach. Following Hoover's death, a series of investigations began, including the Church Committee hearings of 1975. These hearings exposed many of his abuses, but also underscored the necessity of his unyielding approach during those chaotic times. James Hosty, a former FBI agent, recalled, Hoover's methods were ruthless, but in the chaos of the Cold War, maybe that's what America needed. Those words resonated in the minds of those who had lived under Hoover's dark shadow. He wasn't just a powerful leader, he was a symbol of fear and control. In 1975, the Church Committee unearthed numerous violations conducted under Hoover's watch. They discovered that he surveilled thousands of American citizens without just cause. He didn't merely use surveillance to protect national security, he wielded it as a tool for political control and the eradication of adversaries. When document-coded FBI Comment 75 was decrypted, It revealed that Hoover ordered extensive wiretaps on prominent political figures. This wasn't just an invasion of privacy. It was an act to maintain personal power at an absolute level. Hoover left an indelible legacy, a legacy of control and fear. But as these dark secrets were unveiled, people began to question whether such relentless control was truly necessary. In the end, Hoover's legacy is a cautionary tale about what happens when power goes unchecked.